I'm Larry Fedoruk, and this is Later That Same Life. On this weekly podcast, subjects and stories from our lives.
Season 5, Chapter 4.
Great Replacement Theory.
The alleged gunman espoused something called the Great Replacement Theory in suspected writings online.
The ideology of the Great Replacement Theory, it's a white supremacist belief and a kind of conspiracy.
And white people are being slowly but intentionally replaced by minorities and immigrants.
They want to replace the American electorate.
Great Replacement Theory.
The satirical publication known as The Onion posts the same headline after each mass shooting in the United States. They have been doing this since 2014 and have put it up on their site at least 20 times since. Mass shootings. The headline reads, "No way to prevent this," says the only nation where this regularly happens. They posted it again after the mass shooting at the Tops Market in East Buffalo, New York. What is your best guess as to how many mass shootings there have been in the U.S. in 2022 alone? Just over 200. The year is not even half done. Over 200. As one might imagine, the shooters have a variety of motivations. And after each horrific event, there are two common discussions. One, ease of access in America to guns, often high-powered assault-style weapons. And two, mental health issues. Mental health concerns, oddly, do not always come from a good place, as in genuine concerns over a person's well-being. They can be that, but instead often come from the gun lobby. As a distraction, they will argue that mass shootings aren't a gun issue. They are a mental health issue. Let's let that statement just hang in the air for a bit. More on that later. The Buffalo Tops Market mass shooting has created a relatively new dialogue. Yes, we did talk about access to guns and mental health issues, but now we are also having a debate as to whether this shooter and others like him are lone gunmen, some guy with a gun, as Fox News described him, or a domestic terrorist, radicalized by American extreme right-wing white supremacist theory and hate speech. Here's what's being said. For example, a jihadist, even one who is acting alone, is automatically considered to be part of a larger radical Muslim movement. If that is the case, why isn't a racist anti-Semite who shoots up a grocery store not also considered a terrorist, part of a larger movement? Well, in this case, he is. He is a terrorist. His religion is idiocy. His prophet is fear. His God is Donald Trump. He's not a jihadist, he's a GOP-hadist. This is the new direction of the conversation, and I believe it's one we must have. Now within that, you may have heard, maybe for the first time, this term, Great Replacement Theory. What is Great Replacement Theory? Where did it come from? Some version of Great Replacement Theory has been with us for decades upon decades. A basic premise of Great Replacement Theory is racial superiority, which manifested itself into slavery, genocide, and other acts of self-defense. I use the term self-defense quite seriously, because it's always been this fear-driven defense of one's way of life, a defense against outsiders who are perceived to be threatening it. This in itself is a great motivator in the commission of atrocities. Also, by the late 19th century, people began misinterpreting the theories of Charles Darwin, predominantly his survival of the fittest. People got it wrong. Darwin suggested that the organisms best adjusted to their environment were the most successful at surviving and reproducing. Darwin didn't even coin the term survival of the fittest. It was an English philosopher who had read Darwin's book. Darwin eventually did put the phrase into the 5th edition of his book on the origin of the species. The phrase survival of the fittest was co-opted by despots and generals as the basis for aggression. You must be the fittest, a superior peoples, who also must conquer and destroy the weaker. It's actually the exact opposite of what Darwin meant. On the tail of all of this came eugenics, an erroneous science, and a moral pursuit. It's the study of racial improvement and planned breeding. And by the way, this is not mapping the human genome or learning how to cure or even prevent disease. Eugenics is about creating a super race. There's been a lot of evil people associated with eugenics. Hitler took it to another level. After his defeat in World War II, rational humanity took a deep breath and said, well, we learned our lesson there. Never again. Here we are. These are all historical precursors of actual replacement theory, Great Replacement Theory, sometimes called White Replacement Theory. Here are two other key developments. In 1973, a French author, Jean Raspail, wrote a novel of post-apocalyptic fiction. His book, The Camp of the Saints, told the story of a complete annihilation of white Western society at the hands of the evil immigrants from the global South. The book caught on. Over the next 30-plus years, this book became somewhat of a Bible of white supremacy in far-right fringe America, used as a cautionary tale against extreme immigration. Jean Raspail's The Camp of the Saints. A big fan of Raspail's was another French author, Renaud Camus, and in 2012, he authored a book called The Great Replacement. In his book, Camus argued the white Europeans were being reverse colonized by black and brown people, flooding the continent and saying that it was an extinction-level event. This, too, became a rallying cry for white nationalists. There was the rise of the extreme right all over Europe. And then across the pond, Donald Trump becomes president, dog-whistling the nut jobs. In the first year of his presidency, it was August 2017, a group identifying as the alt-right, carrying tiki torches, marched on Charlottesville, Virginia. And they were chanting, "You will not replace us." And there we are, replacement theory, by that term, part of the American lexicon. And by the way, you may remember a young woman who was part of a group protesting the presence of the Tiki Torch men was murdered. Trump had only been sworn in less than 7 months earlier, but boldly took on the media, the fake news media, alleging that there were some fine people on both sides of that clash.
There was hatred, there was violence on both sides.
Well, I do think there's blame. Yes, I think there's blame on both sides. You look at both sides. I think there's blame on both sides, and I have no doubt about it, and you don't have any doubt about it either. And if you reported it accurately, you would say.
Neo-Nazis started this. They showed up in Charlottesville to protest.
Excuse me, they didn't put themselves down as you. And you had some very bad people in that group. But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides. You had people in that group, excuse me, I saw the same pictures as you did.
To me, that was an historic moment, because it was the moment that the dog whistle became a megaphone. Or, as I call it now, the magaphone. Great Replacement Theory, held basically by racist white Europeans and North Americans, believes what Renaud Camus said in his book. Black and brown people and the Jews are coming for me. Their media poster boy is Fox News' Tucker Carlson. He has referred to replacement hundreds of times in the last 2 years alone on his national TV segment. So it's no longer just a fringe theory. He uses his platform to launder these ideologies. Black Lives Matter are coming for you, white guy. Rich Jews, who also control the media, are coming for you, white guy. Social Democrats are opening up the borders so that they can stack the voters' registration list in their favor. Wow! Danger! Danger! When you have some time, go back and listen to my podcast about critical race theory. I'll tell you why I bring it up. The foundation of critical race theory is that race is a social construct. We, society, we made it up. Over the years, we ignored the basic science that we are one human race, and we invented all these divisions. We divided ourselves up into white race, black race, red, yellow, so forth. I think we made it up. So I guess it makes sense if we made up race, now we'd have to make things up about the races. Like, for example, white is right, white is might. The black and brown people are coming to get us. Extraordinary, bizarre, crazy, frightening, exhausting. Wow, America. It's always something with you, isn't it? Yeah, I know, white supremacists exist all around the world, but right now we're talking about America. We're talking about America because a radicalized, fearful 18-year-old kid, anti-black, anti-Semite, white racist, who plagiarized a 180-page manifesto supporting his beliefs, and then went and shot up a grocery store. He was a proponent of great replacement theory. His solution to research, seek out, and recon a predominantly black neighborhood, and then take out as many black people as he could for the cause. So yeah, back to mental health. Oh yeah, he had some mental health issues. A year earlier, he had been flagged at his high school for evaluation based on these chilling remarks and rants. Still, he was legally able to purchase lethal weapons, ammo, and protective gear. The NRA often defends guns by saying the only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. Oh, remember, at the Tops Friendly Market, there was a good guy with a gun. 55-year-old retired police officer Aaron Salter, who worked at the grocery store as an armed security guard. He confronted the shooter and was killed. Because, gun lobby, you need to update your flimsy defense. The only way to stop a bad guy with an assault rifle and body armor is with a good guy with a bigger assault weapon and better body armor. Come on, America. You always hear this thing from them, like making these military assault rifles illegal and getting guns off the street won't solve the problem. Maybe, but it's a good start. You can't at least start? This was not the intent of your Second Amendment, and you know it. Tucker Carlson and similar fear-mongering troglodytes are culpable in these crimes, and they should be held accountable. Here's another thing Americans say. Taking all the Tucker Carlsons off the air won't solve the problem. Maybe, but it's a start, a good start. Can't you start? What he is doing is not free speech. He is yelling fire in a crowded theater, creating panic and endangering lives. A mental case shooting off 100 rounds, or a mental case shooting off his mouth, while the dangers to life and liberty from both are becoming closer to equal. Officers, arrest that man. It's a start. Fox News and assault rifles hiding behind the First and Second Amendments. You're screwed. No way to prevent this, says the only nation where this regularly happens, and the only nation that can't seem to take a first step in eradicating this fear of African Americans and immigrants. I recently heard an excellent point made by an author and minister. His name is Alan Cross. You can look him up. I don't agree with everything he says, but I like this point. Basically, he said that there's never been a time when you people or groups of people arrive at a place where the people already there didn't have some questions. He's right. And questions are okay. Hey, where are you from? Why did you come here? Where will you live? What will you do? Why do you dress like that? And what is that you're eating? All of it, our curiosities and our concerns are okay. Questions are fine. But lately, more and more, we don't seem to build the bridges between us where we can discuss these questions. We're back to the fear, which means isolation, protecting our way of life at any cost. That's what's happened. That's where we are. That's why suddenly there's a theory, hey, they're coming to get us. Somehow, with the influence of those who use fear for profit, we are mostly living in fear. I fear the extreme right. They fear everyone who is not white and Christian. Interesting, because Christianity, and really all religions, basically say, love thy neighbor. Maybe they just skipped reading that part in the Bible. Religion, listen, I'm not a fan, but you'd think more people would use it as it was intended, as a strong center block of morality, supporting the structures we build around it. Instead, it's used as a cover to hide or even sanction racist and bigoted ideology and behavior. To the latter group, I beg of you, in the name of God, at least stop doing your evil deeds in the name of God. You know, it's funny in a way because replacement is a way of life for us humans. We'll replace anything almost any time. Houses, spouses, cars, jobs, you name it. Hey, pull the goalie because this one ain't cutting it. We replace love with lust and logic with God. We replace reason with impulse and responsibility with cries of freedom. We are a replacement society. But this one, the great replacement theory, blacks, browns, and Jews out to replace white people. This one's a topper. And that's not just living in fear. That is out and out paranoia right there. Look up paranoia. It's under mental health issues. I have a great replacement theory of my own. I move that we take every racist, anti-Semitic white nationalist and replace them with, say, a tree. At least then they'd be contributing to the planet.
Later That Same Life is written, voiced, and produced by Larry Fedoruk. LarryFedoruk37@gmail.com. Subscribe to Larry's podcast YouTube channel. Get automatic notifications with each new episode.